Hey guys, it's me, Rhoku, back with more League of Legends content, and here we've got a comprehensive guide to wave control and minions. First, we're going to get through some of these preliminary stat slides. These first few slides aren't really that special, but I do have to get them out of the way to make sure we know everything about wave control. So, first off, glossary. If you're hyper new and you don't really understand what the terms mean, then refer to this slide and just read, okay? Now here we got some basic minion stats. All this is self-explanatory. Melee minions are worth way more than ranged minions, and cannon minions are the most valuable, so you gotta make sure to land those last hits on those cannons. And one more thing, what this means is that if you're the only person killing the minion, around the minion when it dies, you get this much XP, but when there's multiple people around the minion when it dies, this much XP is shared between all of them. So I guess when your jungler is clearing your wave, you're just generating XP for the team, but you are getting less XP on your own. So there's that to worry about. Not to worry about, but to just understand. Alright, so we got more extra minion information. These are the things that you have to know, but I don't really need to spend time talking about them because, you can just read them if you want. Okay, Minion Aggro. Minion Aggro basically just works in like a cyclical manner in that a minion is going to be targeting one thing and then it's going to check whether it still wants to target that, and if it doesn't, it's going to go to the next thing that it wants to target. Okay, so here's the priority list of Minion Aggro, where the top things are the ones that will attack first, and then it'll go down the list and check for everything. One thing to note is that dashes always appear like they just drop Minion Aggro, but that's because they're fast. Okay, so if you constantly walk out of a minion's range, it will kind of just follow you and hit you until you get out of it. But if you just dash out of it instantly, then the minion will instantly drop aggro. So champions with dashes like your Fioras, your Rivens, basically ignore minion aggro because they can very easily just leave it with their dashes, right? Whereas big juggernauts and stuff like Darius can't really avoid minion aggro. They just have to take all the damage. So yeah, one more thing that drops minion aggro is vision. So if you walk into a brush, the minions will just stop hitting it and they'll continue going down the lane. That's just another tool to keep in your mind in case you need it. Turret aggro works in kind of a similar way as minions, but it just kind of keeps hitting the target that still stays in its range. You can just read this, Alright, wave management techniques, the meat and potatoes of this video. Now, one thing to make clear is that there is no one position or technique that's perfect for every single game. These slides, these techniques are tools that you can use in your games if they're optimal, okay? And you have to decide that it's optimal, okay? The way you have to think about wave control is non-stop in that, okay, these are the conditions in the game. The junglers are in these locations, now what do I have to do, okay? You have to just follow these kinds of thinking patterns when you're in-game, because the worst thing you can do with wave control is pull it off wrongly and end up getting frozen out of a ton of CS, or just end up getting dove, okay? So please, 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 just learn these techniques and try to understand how it is to actually think about wave control in-game. My video that will pop up right here, I think, on my face, that video is really good at explaining how you have to think about wave control, whereas this video teaches you the tools and how to do them in game. Alright, freezing. Freezing is the most important wave control technique in the game, and also the more difficult one to do because the other ones are just, kill the minions fast or kill the minions slowly, okay? So, freezing is when you control the amount of damage you deal to minions in order to make it remain in a favorable position to you, okay? So, this is have the minions stay here and then just try to control how much damage you deal to them so that it doesn't push too far or push too close to you, okay? You cannot freeze if your wave is pushing against the enemy wave. To turn a pushing wave into a freeze, you have to first slow push a massive wave into the enemy turret and then freeze the massive wave that's being slow pushed into you. Now, slow pushes work best because the bigger the wave is, the more it's going to push, and then you can pick what's the best location for the freeze and then freeze. Whereas a shove might not work, especially if your opposing toplaner has good wave clear, because they'll just kill it too fast on their turret. The amount of minion advantage that you need to freeze a wave at certain locations just varies from place to place. I have the diagram right here. The further you want from the middle the freeze to be, the more minions you need. As a golden rule of thumb, although 3 minions are okay, you mostly want to freeze with 4 ranged minions, because 4 ranged minions are enough to, if there's a minion advantage of 4 in either of the waves, that wave will push until they hit a turret, okay? So 4 minions are the safest way to keep a freeze, and better yet, it has to be ranged, because melee minions have really messed up aggro. They're crashed here, and the melee minion would like walk behind the enemy lane and just take turret shots. Okay, so ranged minions, they're more predictable, they're easier to control, so freeze with those. Okay, once the wave is crashed in the position you want it to, you have to essentially last hit the minions that are about to die, and also copy the damage that's being dealt to your minions by the enemy toplaner or the enemy minions. If one of your minions die, find a low HP minion from the enemy wave and kill that. If you're losing lane, you can always freeze that T2 turret. Let's head into game and check out how we can freeze, or at least practice freezing in the practice tool. Alright, like I mentioned in the slides, to get a freeze going when we're pushing into the enemy, you have to first slow push a big wave into the enemy turret. So I'm just gonna last hit these minions for a slow push, and I'll just speed up this portion of me, you know, pushing the waves into the turret and freezing it. Alright, so we've pushed a big wave into the enemy turret, and now we're going to wait until it slow pushes into us and freeze it around here. Alright, so the wave is right here, and we're going to freeze it. One big thing to notice is that it kind of took this long to push into us because I didn't slow push a big enough mini wave. And also you got to keep in mind that there will be an enemy champion pushing the wave here. So like, you know, it took a lot longer in practice. First off, we count the minions. 3 melees, 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They got 8 minions and we have only 4. So we got some chopping up to do. Let's start with the low HP minions. Start with the melees. Okay, still 6 here, so we should just kill 2 of them. Okay, now that we're actively freezing, you have to do 2 things. 1, kill the minions that your own minions are currently targeting. Okay, you have to do it in a way where you're kind of canceling your own minions' as ranged auto attacks. Okay, so while this auto attack is in the air, I'll kill this minion, something like that. Okay, and 2, whenever one of your minions has died, you have to basically do equivalent damage to the enemy minion wave. Okay, now this is important that you copy the damage that's being dealt to your minions, because in a game your opposing top laner might get some damage in. You want to basically do that exact same damage to his minions, not too much, not too little. So yeah, now we have a perfect little freeze here. We can hold this for as long as we want. It's not really like an issue to hold it a bit far out. If you want, you can let it push up a bit further, but I personally don't like freezing here because the melee minions just walk around and take turret shots. The ideal freeze when you're on blue side is around here, and when you're on red side is around here. Okay, these ideal freeze spots. The thing with freezing is that you cannot afford to just stop paying attention. Okay, you have to just always be vigilant and pay attention to how much HP all the minions are at. Stop paying attention for a bit, and then you'll do too much damage, or you'll do too little, and you're either tanking enemy minions, losing HP, or you're just slow pushing at that point, okay? Which is not good. When should you freeze? You should freeze when you are way stronger than your opponent, okay? Like, you have way more power, and all they're doing is just sitting under the turret and farming, okay? We've ran into this countless times where you kill someone 3-4 times, but they just sit under the turret and farm, right? What do you do here? You freeze, okay? Because if you freeze against them, they basically have to walk out and risk death against you to even get minion XP, okay? You have complete control on the lane, and you get a ton of gold, whereas they get nothing, okay? So freezing is perfect into these positions. Now, this is given that, like, 1, you can't dive the person, and 2, you can't destroy the turret. If your opponent is a late game champion like a Nasus or a KO, freezes are extra amazing into them, because part of their gameplay is just CSing on their turret what they get, okay? So if you freeze, they're just blocking them out of scaling, so that's perfect. If your jungler is around the lane and wants to gank, freezes work amazingly, because when you freeze, your opponent has to step up to get to the CS, which is perfect, okay? And if the enemy jungler is there, freezes are also perfect, because when you're freezing, you're very close to your turret, so killing you is very difficult. And although the enemy jungler will just shove the lane out and ruin the freeze, you basically just avoided a gank for nothing. So that's perfect, right? You should not freeze when you're weaker than your opposing laner, okay? If you're up against Jace or like a Riven or a Fiora who's killed you like 2-3 times already, then freezing is just going to lead to you dying. Because to enforce a freeze, one must have force. You have to be stronger than your opponent to like, hey, I'm going to hold this wave and you can't stop me. But if they can stop you, then freezing is just opening yourself up to getting destroyed. Not to mention how thinning the wave requires abilities. And if you use an ability, you leave yourself open to getting destroyed. So yeah, if you're weaker, if you're losing lane, don't freeze. If there's a fight happening in the dragon or the river, somewhere else you have to be, then don't freeze, because freezing is something that takes time, effort, and attention to pull off. But if you're better off being somewhere else on the map, then you're just wasting your time here, because let's say that the entire enemy team rotates the dragon, and you're just sitting here like fiddling with these minions while your team gets slaughtered, okay? You have to be there to help your team, okay? The 2-3 minions you're gonna get here are not worth your entire team getting destroyed. So freeze when you don't have anywhere else to be, or you're so weak that you can't even help anyone, which, I mean, at that point, you've basically just trolled the game. So yeah, but it is something to do at least, okay? If you're playing a champion that's far better off roaming and getting kills than sitting in lane, then you shouldn't really be looking to freeze. Slow pushes and shoves are your friend. Let's say you're playing like a Pantheon, a Rengar, a Kled, a Pyke, something that just loves going around the map constantly and getting a ton of kills. In this case, you should really not be looking to do anything with freezes at all, because that's not the point of your champion. If you're winning lane, or you've won lane, just roam and get kills. Okay, help your team out. Your champion is made for this, okay? Unless you're in a situation where you can't roam. Like, let's say the enemy champions are way too powerful, or their junglers are around, so you can't really leave lane. There are some circumstances where you are just stuck in lane, you might as well freeze. But most of the time, if your champion has the power to roam, you should be looking to roam. Slow pushing. Slow pushing is basically when you have a wave that's already pushing against enemy wave, and all you do is last hit. You don't hit the minions, you only last hit them. Okay, pick them up one by one. What this ends up in doing is it gives time for the reinforced minions to get to the crash, and you're building up as big a minion wave as possible to then crash into the enemy turret. Okay? Now, one thing that you have to keep in mind is that when you're slow pushing, you have to shove the last wave, because if you don't shove, there's a chance it just crashes into a minion wave under the enemy turret, which is not bad. It will still bounce back against you, but if your minions are hitting the enemy minions, they're killing CS and gold that you could have had. But if they're hitting the turret, they're just hitting the turret. They're just getting turret damage. They're not killing anything. The worst they'll get is like a plate, but if you got that massive of a minion wave under the turret, then you might as well just stick around and get the plate. Let's just go for a slow push here. A slow push is basically when you get your minion wave into a state of pushing. Okay, so let me just do a bit more damage, so it's a bit more clear. All right, so now we are pushing, right? It does seem like we're even in terms of minion count, but remember, our reinforcements got here faster, so they do their damage before the enemy minion reinforcements do their damage, okay? A slow push is just killing the minions one by one, only to last hit, okay? Again, range auto. While it's flying, we kill that. And the whole point of this is to get a massive minion wave shoved into the enemy turret, okay? All right. I'll shove this last one because, as you guys can see, if we slow push this, it's probably gonna like be stuck around here hitting these minions, and I don't want that. I wanted it to hit the enemy turret. So yeah, that is basically just how a slow push works. When should you slow push? One of these cases is when you're slightly behind. Let's say you've died once already. Slow pushing with a big mini wave can act as a guarantee in that this next trade or fight I'm going to take will be in my advantage because I got all these minions behind me. Okay, and a lot of minions do a ton of damage that does count, especially earlier on. Okay, so slow push with a big minion wave if you need that extra power to help you guarantee trades and stuff. Okay, if you are like winning, you've got a bunch of kills and you want to basically fish for kills, slow pushing or freezing is a very powerful way of just baiting your opposing top laner to miss position. Say there's this cannon that's low HP, you walk back a bit to try to see if they'll go for it, and when they do, ghost or just jump on them with your dash and then kill them. Right? You can bait people out with cannons and stuff, or just make sure that they're impatient enough to like make a mistake on their own. Just slow pushing and freezing are great ways to fish for kills. If you are planning on diving the opponent by yourself or with your jungler, but they're not there yet, slow pushing is very, very powerful. One big thing you gotta understand about dives is that if you're under the enemy turret and the enemy champion auto attacks you, then all of your minions will attack them instead of the turret, which means that they'll take a ton of damage. Okay, this is very, very important. And this means that big slow push waves kind of count as like an extra champion that you're diving with. So if you're planning on diving a person on your own, then a big slow push minion wave can be a great help. And if your junglers in the jungle, they ping that they're coming top, a slow push can be devastating because it's not just you and this jungler versus the enemy under their turret, it's you, your jungler, and this massive minion wave. Like, the survival chance for the enemy top laner is 0% at this point, okay? So if you have the time to set up a nice clean dive with a lot of minions, go for it, okay? If you can predict that a fight that's going to happen in the future, like in 1 minute, a slow push is amazing. Because the thing with slow pushes is that if you shove a big wave into the enemy turret, it's going to take a while for the enemy top laner to clear it. And this gives you a lot of prio, okay? A lot of time to just roam around and get things done. So if you're like, hey, my jungler's pathing here, there's going to be a fight here, or my mid lane is pushing, they're probably going to get ganked, so I should prepare for this, or there's going to be a fight at this dragon, slow push a big wave into the enemy turret, and then roam, get to that fight, and carry it by yourself, okay? And like, the best part about this is your top laner, your enemy top laner, is now stuck in a bad position. You're basically putting your opposing top laner in a position where they lose something whatever they do, whereas you don't lose anything because you already pushed those minions, you took them, and then you're roaming off of that. You should not slow push when it is better to freeze, okay? I see this happen so many times where players just non-stop slow push waves into the turret where they're just better off freezing and getting way more of a lead anyway, okay? So when it's better to freeze, don't slow push. If you are so behind that the enemy can just step into your minions and kill you anyway, I'm talking like you die 2-3 times to a Darius. And let's be real, when you die that much to Darius, he does not care how many minions you have around, he will kill you. Okay, so just try to understand that some champions, once you die enough to them, they just don't care if you have a lot of minions. So at that point, it's better to just get what you can and then leave, okay? If the enemy jungler is around and is ready to gank you, then the slow pushing or just staying in the wave is not the best idea because you're basically inviting the gank. It's way better to just back off and stay safe. Now, if you're so fair that you can just 2v1 them, then you should just stay there and kill them both. But this is like, you know, for most cases you want to just back off because if the enemy top laner and the jungler have enough CC to keep you stunned until they can one-shot you, then you're just going to lose your lead, okay? Shoving or fast pushing. This is quite self-explanatory. It's when you kill the entire minion wave as quickly as possible. Different champions do it the different ways. So if you want to master shoving on your champions, you should go to practice tool and try your best to kill a wave as quickly as possible. The ability to kill a wave quickly is called wave control. And as a side note, typically mages have the best wave control, which is why they're like the most popular mid lane champions. Mid lane is very, like, in mid lane, wave control is a very, very crucial thing. So if you're playing a champion that's melee, that is a step up to clear the minions, then you're putting yourself at the risk of getting abused by the enemy jungler, the enemy support, by everybody, okay? That's why whenever you see like a Yasuo mid, they take like 10 ganks because he has to step inside the wave to clear, whereas a Syndra or something can just clear the wave like from like an arm's length. As for shoves, a shove is basically just killing the entire minion wave as fast as possible. So let's just turn off the turret fire. We're just gonna get in here and kill all of it, okay? That's how you do it on Darius, by the way. A lot of Darius players just queue only the melee minions, and you know, they spend time auto-attacking things over and over again, even though like if you just queued the whole wave, it'll be much faster. So you get into the minion wave, the middle of it, Q, auto W, make sure you get your W's to reset. Crucial. And by the time you get your second Q, the wave should be gone, okay? You have to play whatever champions you want in practice tool and practice shoving over and over again. Every single champion shoves at different rates, and you have to find out what's the perfect way to shove. If you need like an example gameplay, you can just watch high elo gameplay of like whatever champion you're practicing and just shove waves like them, because high rank players are, you know, they tend to have mastered small things like that. You can also set this up to kill everything in one Q. Oof, so satisfying. But yeah, that's shoving essentially, okay? Killing minion waves as fast as possible. When should you shove? If you got a kill and you want to go back to base, shove the lane and then recall, okay? This way, you're ensuring that you get all the minions and the enemy is losing minions. So you don't just get the kill, you get all these minions. Like you compound your lead. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if the enemy has teleport and you cannot fight them, like you're so HP that you can't fight them anymore, even with the level lead, then you should recall, okay? You do not want to greed or die against them just for some minions, okay? you will lose CS against the opposing top laner with teleport if like the wave is pushing into them, okay? You kind of just have to take the L on that one, as the kids say, and just recall, okay? So if you're fighting against a top laner that has teleport, you kill them, but you're solo HP, you can't stay and contest the wave, then just recall, okay? If you want to roam ASAP and have no time to set up like a slow push, then you should just shove, okay? And this is for fights that are happening right now. So fights happening in the river and you have like 10 seconds to prepare for it. Then shove fast and then run towards that fight, okay? Just these are the points where you have to master how to shove with your specific champion, because if you don't understand how to kill the wave as quickly as possible, then you're going to be wasting time and you can't get to these fights in time, okay? I mean, if the fight is actively happening, it's better to just run to that fight instead of stay and clear camps or like a minion wave. But, you know, if you have 5-10 seconds to prepare, then clear the wave. If your jungler is ready for the dive, like they're under the turret, they're behind them, then you should just show the lane out. At this point, you guys have to get the kill and leave so the jungler can stop wasting their time top lane, right? Or whatever lane you're playing. So it's better to just shove a lane in and just get ready to kill the person under the turret, okay? If you want to keep the enemy in lane, whether that be because they're low HP and they're very easy to dive when you're waiting for a jungler, or if like, you know, the enemy just got a power spike that you don't want them to get and want to kill them before they get it, then these are good reasons to keep them in lane, so just perma shove waves into them, okay? Now, be careful to not do this when the any jungler is there, because then you're just inviting a 2v1. A trick you can do when you have teleport is take a fight against someone, right? Make sure they're low HP, shove the lane, and then you recall, okay? Then you can come back to lane and you're full HP, and because they have to deal with this wave that you just shoved in, they could not recall, okay? So now they're in lane against you, you're full HP, you got all these stats because you went to the shop, and they're like half HP because they didn't take teleport. So that's how you properly abuse teleport versus another top laner that doesn't have teleport, okay? Lastly, if your opposing top laner is roaming, then you want to shove as much as possible to get the minions under the turret and to kill, like, you know, to get the turret to kill the minions, okay? Obviously, when your opposing top laner is roaming, they're gonna get some kills on stuff, but at least you can make it so that they're sacrificing the minion waves by non-stop shoving and getting those minions under that turret. You should not shove when you're winning lane against a champion who can just sit on the turret and kill minions, okay? If you can't kill them or destroy their turret, go for a freeze, okay? If the wave is even, then shoving is usually a bad idea, especially when the enemy top laner is in lane, because not only are you leaving yourself open to being ganked by shoving quickly, you're also leaving yourself open to getting destroyed by this top laner, because to shove, you need to use your abilities, okay? So it's just all around a horrible idea to shove when your opposing top laner is right there in front of you, okay? And also, God forbid, they actually understand wave control and they can freeze you out because of the way that you just shoved in, okay? So it's not the best idea to shove a wave when your top laner is right in front of you and you've not won yet, okay? If the enemy jungler is ready to gank you and just around your lane, do not shove. Don't shove. And this is not just bad because, oh, I'm standing near the minions, I'll just 2v1. This is bad because if you shove a lane and the enemy top laner is conscious of what's going on, they'll just drag the wave to a bush and freeze it until the end of time. And because the enemy jungler is right there, you can't step up and contest the freeze and kill it. By shoving a lane, when the enemy jungler is top, you're essentially dooming yourself for like the next 1, 2, 3, 4 minutes of just getting no CS, okay? So be very careful with your wave control when there are other enemy players top lane, okay? In general, if your enemy is capable of freezing, you do not want to shove lanes, okay? Just try to think in their shoes. If I was them, could I freeze here? And if yes, then don't shove, okay? So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.